Hello everyone, my name is Angioletta Sperti and I am full professor of comparative public law at the University of Pisa. I wish to thank Giuseppe Martinico and all the colleagues of Diritti Comparati for offering me the opportunity to present my last book entitled The Constitutional Courts, Media and Public Opinion, which was released by Hart Publishing in November 2023. Until the mid-1990s, courts have traditionally refrained from engaging directly with the public. It was argued that constitutional courts speak only through their judgments. But in the last years, the landscape has changed. Constitutional and Supreme Courts have overcome their traditional restraint to engage with citizens and public opinion and have adopted new and sometimes very innovative strategies to convey their message, to illustrate their role in the system of government, to inform on their latest judgments, to mold the narrative around them, and finally to promote their image and to build constitutional culture. In the first place, my book aims to analyze these developments, to understand the reasons behind the adoption of a more proactive approach in institutional communication of constitutional and Supreme Courts. I try, in the first place, to answer this question. Is institutional communication of Supreme and Constitutional Courts just the results of technological developments, or do other reasons justify this shift in the relationship of courts with media and public opinion? In the second place, I analyze the effects of this transformation in terms of courts' role and legitimacy. I address criticism that has been raised against the courts, especially by those who argue that courts yield to the temptation of public support by engaging directly with public opinion. Finally, in the last part of the book, I advance some proposals to help courts to prevent some criticism, to address the risks in terms of legitimacy, especially when using some means of communication such as social media. As far as the comparative method is concerned, my book focuses on the French Conseil Constitutionnel, the German Bundesverfassungsgericht, the Italian Constitutional Court, the UK Supreme Court, and in North America, the Supreme Court of Canada and the Supreme Court of the United States. The mutual interdependence between courts and the press, which I address in Chapter 2, makes it essential, in my opinion, to compare jurisdictions which share some similarities. And I selected courts with established tradition, jurisdictions which share some similarities in terms of freedom of expression, and where at the same time the media enjoy independence and equal rights and opportunities. The book adopts an interdisciplinary approach. I discuss the developments and challenges of institutional communication of constitutional and Supreme Courts from the perspective of comparative public law, but also consider the contribution that sociology, communication, journalism studies have provided to the study of public opinion and the media. I discuss media courts interdependency and address the conclusions that communication or journalism studies have reached on the definition of news. I apply their findings to constitutional courts, discussing when and how judgments and the courts can become news, and the challenges of reporting on long and highly specialized texts such as Supreme Court's judgments. Focusing on the relationship between courts and public opinion, I analyzed the contribution of sociology and political theory to the study of public opinion. Constitutional and comparative public law have mainly focused on public opinion from the perspective of rights or have analyzed the public opinion in relation to political branches. I discuss how their findings illuminate the relationship between public opinion and courts, that is, institutions which are outside the political circuit. What are the results of my analysis? In the first place, looking at the latest developments, I argue that it's possible to summarize the evolution of institutional communication of constitutional and Supreme Courts as the passage from monologue to dialogue. Whereas in the early stages, the communication of courts originated from the courts themselves. through their judgments or press releases, for instance, and was directed to the media, which filtered court's message to the public, which translated this message into accessible language. Courts now pursue a proactive and direct engagement with journalists and citizens. The unidirectional flow of information has proved inadequate in the age of social media, online platforms, the extreme speed of news creation and consumption, and courts have realized the importance of conveying their message without filters, and at the same time offering people the opportunity to see them at their doorstep, as the UK Supreme Court said. I argue that these developments cannot be explained just in terms of technological developments, but they are deeply grounded in the role of courts to build consensus on constitutional values and promote constitutional literacy. Courts are aware that institutional legitimacy is an invaluable resource that helps them to function effectively, and that, especially in the age of populism, can be pursued only through direct, dialogic, and proactive engagement with public opinion. I argue that the support that courts aim to stimulate should not be read as political support. It is instead deeply grounded in the traditional role of courts to build consensus on constitutional value and promote constitutional culture. Finally, in the last part of the book, I consider the heavy burden that institutional communication is placing on courts, and I put forward some arguments for how courts can balance proximity and seclusion, transparency and openness. So thank you very much to Diritti Comparati. I hope that my research can be interesting for scholars of constitutional justice, but also for scholars in public opinion, journalism, communication studies, all those who deal with institutional communication. Thank you.